Jump up. Jump up. Ready? Woo! Hey everybody! Good morning! Good morning, good morning! It's a good day in January to get started. How are you guys doing on your resolutions? Hey Becker, hey Marco! How is everybody? Good to see you all. Woo! Okay. That's a good way to get moving in the morning. Get a little dancing in. Get your blood pumping. So, what's our big question we're going to ask today? Today, the question is, how do we know things? Right? Yesterday, I talked about when is a great time to find out you're wrong. And the answer is when you're wrong. It's wonderful, and our whole education system and everything has created this way of making us so afraid to be wrong and feeling like it's a threat to be wrong, when in fact, anybody who is an entrepreneur, who is really successful in life, is someone who's not afraid to try new things and to be wrong. Hey, Brennan. So we talked about that, about how we should rejoice when we find out we're wrong, because that means we've learned something. We've learned something new, and that's amazing. And today I want to talk a little bit about how do we know things. Hey, Harshita. Great to see you. Hey, Ricardo. So, how do we know things? This is the question. This is kind of a fun one. It's kind of interesting because you're going to start to recognize that you do this all the time, okay? When I say no, right, it means like I feel like, okay, so I am certain that this thing is true, okay? And there's a way that our brain does this. So our brain is like a computer. It's not, it takes into account a few different things, and then it gives us a sense of certainty. Now, that certainty is not necessarily true. It just makes us feel like we're certain about something. So how does it do this? How does it do this without any real proof? Hey, Israel. Hey. It's very interesting. Your brain, so there's a number of different ways we can know things, right? We can know things through a process, a logic process, where we can prove if something is true or not. The other way we know things is somebody told us, okay? We know things from a source, right? That source. The problem happens, and I'm guessing this has happened to you. Who here has had this happen to them? Raise your hand. Hey, Lorne. Who here has had this happen to them where somebody told them something and they believed it and they felt like, well, I know this to be true, and then they found out later it was a lie? Guessing that's happened to all of us. That is the problem. Hi, Andrea. That's the problem with when we know things from a source, right? There's plenty of scientific stuff that we have discovered is not true, that we've discovered it's like, okay, well, we thought it worked this way, but now with more knowledge that we've gained, we know now it works another way. So that's the problem of just accepting everything with a sense of certainty from a source. So how does our brain does this? Our brain has a really fun way to do this. Basically, it's a process called triangulation. Hey Arshita, where we need three things. We need three things to correspond, and then our brain gives us a sense of knowing this is certain, okay? So how does it work? Basically, if I say, okay, I read this in a book, okay? I got it from a source, an authority. I read it in a book. And then maybe a teacher or a parent told me something similar. And then somebody else told me something similar, my pastor, or maybe I had an experience that seemed to indicate that this was how things worked. Now, if I take those three sources together, my brain does a little thing called triangulation, and now it says, I'm certain that this is true. And it accepts it as true. Could be a total lie, could be completely false, but your brain accepts it as true. That's how this process that's how we know things. But of course we don't really know it, right? It's just, so what's a good example of this? So back in the day, maybe 20, 30 years ago, do you remember when they used to teach us that your brain doesn't create any new neural cells? That like after your childhood or teenagehood or whatever, your brain cells just start to die. And then by the time you're old, that's why you can't remember things, because your brain cells have all died and it never makes any new brain cells. That was literally what scientists thought. Now, of course, now we have all the MRI mapping and brain scans and much more advanced stuff, and we know that that was totally not true. Another thing, what's another thing that they found out was totally not true, that we all believed for years and years and years, and all the experts and the sources were saying it, and in fact, a lot of people still think it's true today. Ulcers. Who here remembers, and who here thinks that ulcers come from stress? Right? In fact, total lie. Ulcers don't come from stress. And everybody thought that for years and years and years. They thought ulcers came from stress. Ulcers, in fact, come from a particular type of a bacteria that this guy, young doctor guy, he was like, you know what, that doesn't make sense. How come like every time he was doing research on it, and he's like, I keep finding this bacteria in all of this stuff. Turns out he discovered it was the bacteria that causes it. So now they treat the bacteria and your ulcers go away. See? So because you just accept that you can't, that's why if you just are accepting that source, right? Someone, some expert, some whatever is telling you this is what happened, but they haven't fully investigated it, fully followed using the scientific or logic process to figure it out. Hey, Elizabeth. Then should we really be trusting that? Do we just accept it because an expert told us that? Even many experts? If we haven't really fully done the logic work to investigate it. So that's why I talk about, staying open. Because if we haven't really proven it for ourselves through logic, then staying open to the idea that, a lot of people say this, but it might be wrong. It's possible it might be wrong, right? So if I see evidence to the contrary, then I'm not just going to dismiss or ignore that evidence. I'm going to actually look into it. I'm going to be like, that evidence is interesting that this thing maybe doesn't work the way everyone's been telling me it works. Hey, John. Hey, Elizabeth. Let's dig into that today. Recognize all the different things that we think we know, right? And maybe give it that little bit of uncertainty. Uncertainty is a good thing. Drop in that little bit of uncertainty and be like, did I get this from a source, from a book that somebody just told me that this is true? My parents, my teachers, whatever it is. Did I get that from some source, or have I really investigated it myself? Have I really applied logic to figure out if it's true? So that's our question for today. How do we know what is true? And when I say no with quotation marks, hey JP, what I'm really saying is that we don't actually know because we haven't proven it. We've just accepted somebody else's word for it, and now we have a sense of certainty about it, right? And that sense of certainty can block us from doing more investigation and from actually finding out what's really true. So that's why it's so dangerous, and that's why it's so beautiful to stay open and to stay in the question. So I hope that you look around you today and spot lots of things. Hey, Joao. And Rodrigo, I hope you get to spot lots of things in your life where you're like, did I just accept this? You know, did I just accept this because somebody told me that it was true? Have I really done the research? Do I really know? That could be things about your government, your politics, your religion, your about science. I mean, so many things that we discover after a while. We're like, wait, that actually wasn't right. That was wrong. That was somebody projecting their agenda on us, right? So let's stay open. Let's stay in the question. Let's stay curious. I hope you all have a beautiful, beautiful day. Bye, everybody.